In the 50s of the 20th century, Allison and Jack live in a typical American town. They meet friends, drive a car, and love each other. In general, they enjoy life. One such day, a woman's getting ready for a party with friends, while her husband goes to work. A woman's voice tells us that today is 997th day. All employees are on their way to headquarters. All residents are safe. The ladies are wished a good day and Alice take care of household chores. And Anne goes to a dance class like all the wives in the town. After class, Alice comes home and talks to her neighbor Bunny, who constantly makes remarks to her children. Alice has this obsessive music in her head that she hums. Suddenly she pays attention to another neighbor, Margaret, who stands in front of the house, oblivious to the outside world. Alice starts cooking, but one egg makes her suspicious. She squeezes it in her hand, and the egg turns out to be empty. The woman squeezes the others, and there is nothing inside either. In the evening she waits for her husband, beautifully dressed and with dinner. The next day the women are relaxing by the pool. Alice is distracted. The song plays in her head again. Later Alice walks to the model of the town, and mindlessly points her finger at the streets. She is distracted by Bunny. The men meanwhile are talking about everyday topics. In general, the whole atmosphere is calm and sunny. The signal sounds, and Shelley welcomes the new residents. Frank, who has created something extraordinary, a new world, appears. The woman's speech is interrupted by Margaret, who says she and her husband should not be here. The woman's husband hurriedly leads her away, and Frank apologizes to his guests. Their task is to follow the dream and confront chaos, the main enemy of progress, because they are all changing the world. The guests echo Frank's words. Everyone is happy and they are all one family. The man thanks his wives for supporting their husbands. Alice goes looking for Jack but finds Margaret, who says she is having nightmares. She can be here. But the woman's husband pulls the curtain in front of Alice. She finds her husband in the house. Jack kisses her and the couple do what they have to do. In the process, Alice sees Frank watching them with a smile on his face. Later, the women gather at the mall and discuss their ideal life. And they also talk about Margaret. Alice feels sorry for her. Although Bunny thinks that she herself is responsible for the troubles, because she herself took her son to the desert. They found her, but without the child. They start talking about the man's work. No one knows for sure, but there are rumors that they make weapons there. Bunny insists that it is none of their business. At night, Alice has a nightmare. In the morning, she sees her husband off work, as usual, and starts to clean up, and then goes on a trip. She stays on the bus alone, and tells the driver that she just wants a ride. Suddenly she sees an airplane flying toward the mountains, and then crashing down. Alice screams to the driver, but he does not understand what she wants. The woman asks him to help the victims, but he rides only the road and cannot turn. Alice jumps out of the bus and runs to the mountains. She walks in a desert for a long time, then she goes out to the road and goes to a high mountain. She walks up to the house and stops at the mirror glass. Alice brings her hands to the glass and loses consciousness. She sees a circle of dancing women in the dark, and a male voice says that people should let themselves know what their life should be. The next moment, Alice finds herself on her bed. Walking into the kitchen, she sees Jack cooking dinner. Alice doesn't understand what's going on, and her husband explains that when he came home from work, she was already asleep. The woman doesn't understand how she got home, but now Jack also looks at his wife in confusion. Alice decides that she saw everything in a dream. The next morning everything happens as usual again. Alice sees her husband off and begins to clean the window, but suddenly the glass seems to move, pushing her against the wall. In the next shot, the phone rings, and Alice is free. Margaret was on the phone urges her to get out, because she was there and saw everything herself. Alice sees the women dancing again, but now it is her and her friends. Suddenly, instead of her reflection, Margaret appears in front of her, approaching the mirror from the other side and banging her head against the surface. Alice screams and comes to her senses. She sees Margaret on the roof of her house. Turning to Alice, the woman cuts her neck and falls down. Alice screams in horror. The staff rushes in and carries Margaret's body away. In the evening she tries to talk to Jack, but he doesn't believe her. He says that Margaret is in the hospital, that she accidentally cut herself cleaning the window. Alice feels guilty because the neighbor asked her for help. She asks her husband to tell her what he does at work, but he says he is not allowed to talk about it. At night, Alice watches their town commercials and catches herself thinking that she's kind of flopping in the pool, which is impossible to swim out of. In the morning she cooks, and suddenly begins to rub her head with the food wrap. It's like Alice is trying to regain consciousness, but it's not helping her, and she's tearing down the tape. The doctor arrives and assures the woman that it was just nervous tension, because Alice witnesses Margaret fall. The woman again asserts that it was not an accident. The doctor offers to prescribe her pills, but Jack refuses. He is sure they can handle it all. The doctor leaves, forgetting his suitcase, from which Alice manages to pull out a folder with Margaret's personal file. But as it turns out, all the text is blurred. It is impossible to read anything. Alice burns the folder. She drinks alcohol and sees the women dancing again. Then she finds herself in the bathroom. Jack brings her a dress and asks her to think about having a baby. The couple arrives at a restaurant where all the townspeople are gathered. Alice again sees the same scene and Margaret. Frank gives a speech and invites Jack to the scene. He is ready to congratulate the man because he is now a member of the High Council. He gives Jack a ring as a symbol of his loyalty. The public applauds and Jack dances. Alice can't bear to look at this and runs to the bathroom. A vision of another Jack who has lost his job flashes before her. Bunny finds her and begins to say that Alice's business is to support her husband, and she ruined his career by acting like Margaret. One day later, the couple are expecting guests for dinner. The husband meets Frank while Alice slices the snacks. The man walks into the kitchen and suddenly starts talking to her. He's sorry Bunny didn't believe her, but she didn't believe Margaret either. He's been waiting a long time for someone to challenge him. The guests are seated at the table, and Alice defiantly sits in the host seat. Alice suddenly asks the question, why are all the women in town from 1 and 2 states at most, and they all go to the same place on vacation? They also all meet their husbands on trains, under the same circumstances. The stories are all the same, because they're told what they're supposed to remember. But sometimes they suddenly remember their past. Frank does something to all of them. He grinning recalls her nervous shock. He also says that Alice opened up to him in his bedroom. Alice freezes at such terrible lie, but Jack believes Frank. The woman tries to appeal to her guests' common sense. Where did this food come from, and what is in them? The guests leave. Frank is disappointed. He expected something more interesting from her. Alice tries to explain to Jack that he is the dearest person to her, and asks him to go away, anywhere but together. Jack agrees. They leave the house and get in the car, and then he apologizes to his wife. And the next moment the woman is dragged out of the car by the employees and carried off into the darkness. Alice finds herself on the operating table. A masked doctor bent over her, and she recognizes herself in the doctor's face. The next moment the doctor finishes the operation and goes home, where her unemployed husband meets her. He didn't make dinner because he didn't know what she wanted. There is no hot water either. She's very tired because she's been standing at the operating table for 30 hours. Her husband is sitting at the monitor watching a commercial for a new simulation. It's another sunny morning in Paradise City. Bunny comes to Alice's house and tells her the latest news. Alice hugs her friend's children. Bunny looks anxious at this moment. Her husband leaves for work. Alice does chores, dances, swims, and meets her husband. She takes the roast out of the oven, and Jack chooses a record, humming a song. While Alice hears it, it's like Alice wakes up. Jack walks through the dark city, enters his apartment. He is eligible to participate in the Victory Project with Alice. Alice sees herself in bed fixed and with many wires connected. Jack takes care of her body. He has to get out of the simulation every day in order to be able to pay for it. The man lies next to her and hums a song, which Alice hears now. She realizes that he took away her real life, but the man did it to save her from constant work. Frank created this world, so they could live the life they wanted. Jack hugs her, but Alice punches him in the head. The next moment Bunny finds her. Jack is dead. This immediately reported to Frank. Bunny confessed that she knows all about the simulation. She chose this life, because here she can be with her children, who are alive. Alice must run or she will be killed. The woman goes into the yard, walks to Jack's car and drives into the desert. She is chased by employees. Frank is informed of what has happened. He orders everyone to stop her at all costs. The next moment Alice stabs him with a knife. Alice drives to the mountain, but near the top her car breaks down and she continues on foot. A woman approaches a building when her pursuers are already one step away from her. Alice stretches out her arms, the darkness, the sights of a perfect life, and finally the sight of a woman, awakening to reality. In the comments tell me if you like this story. How much would you rate it on a 10-point scale? And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell.